All right, continuing on. So we've got an app, and if I run it, I haven't ran it in a while, so probably should do that. Okay, good. Everything looks good. Enter amounts. I click my button. All right, so the problem is that I enter amount, and the idea is that you'd enter it, you'd hit compute, and it would show you here's how much you want to tip, but I don't have a setting the percentage anywhere. So you'd probably want to do that, right? If the service was really good, maybe you want to give more. If it was really bad, maybe you want to tip less, or maybe you're broke. Lots of reasons. People tip different amounts. So let's give that option. A couple different ways of doing it. First way we're going to do it is we'll go to, in the buttons area, there's this idea of a radio button. And you'll see there's radio group and radio button. We'll talk about both here in a minute, but let's talk about button first. So radio button, it's just a little button, you can select it, and the idea is that you can only select one. So it's called a radio, in case you're curious why it's called a radio button. Back in the old days, well before when you were born, car stereos used to be a little bit, they weren't really digital so much, and you changed the dial, the presets was actual buttons, and when you press the button, the preset would actually move the dial to the right place on the radio to do the tuning. And because you could only have one selected, if you pushed one in, it'd move the dial to, say, station 95.0, and then if you hit another button for, say, 101, the 95 button would pop out and the other button would pop in. So it's the way physical car radios used to work. Well, not just car radios, all kinds of radios. So yeah, it's a little older. So we can create something like that. We can create multiples. But before we do that, I'm going to delete this off. Well, actually, no, let's leave that one on, because I want to show you a couple different things here. When you create radio buttons, though, you need to put them in a group to say, these are the buttons I want you to group together. Only one can be selected. So we do that by adding a radio group. The thing is, though, when I drop this radio group on here, you'll see there's no real, if I click off it, there's no interface. And as I mentioned before, finding stuff without an interface can be difficult. For the radio group, once we put buttons in there, it's easy to find, but in the meantime, right now it's not. But if you come over here to the side, the component tree, we can see radio group. There it is. So I can select it again. Now the important thing to know, it's called a component tree. Well, this doesn't look like much of a tree, right? Well, it's a tree in that you can have a hierarchy. So in this case, when I want to have radio buttons to all be part of a group, so only one can be selected at a time, we do that by adding it to this container, this radio group. So the way you can do this, you can grab this and kind of drag it and say I'm hovering over top, and now it puts it inside. And now I can add more, so let's do 3. So another radio button. I can just kind of drop it on top of here now. And I think if I drop the group on to begin with, you could probably add the first one that way, but I can never position them right. So I usually just throw the thing on there, and then I come over here and get the first one added. There we go. So we've got 3 buttons in there. Now we still need to do our constraints. And over here now when I click this, it's always selecting, right? To select the group itself, I'll need to come over here and select it. But now with this group, I can decide how do I want to position it. So maybe on this, let's maybe tie it back over to here. And we'll go down 24. I think we went the button down 24, didn't we? Let's see. No, the button went down 16. So let's do the radio group. We'll do it down 16 also. I guess that didn't look too bad. And maybe we'll tie this to the inner amount there. There we go. So now we constrained it. We said where it's going to go. Let's go through and give it labels. But again, we don't want to hard code our labels, so let's come over here. Let's do string name. And this time, let's see, let's call it tip label low. And let's say that is 10%. Whoops. 10%. And to speed this up, I'm just going to copy. So let's do tip label low, medium, high. And we'll do it 10, 15, and 20. So we've got some labels. So now we can come back over here and we can change it, the text to low, medium. Where'd medium go? And high. Okay, so far so good. So let's go ahead and run it. There's just a couple more things we need to do on the radios, but let's go ahead and run so you can see it. So it comes up, user can enter amounts, and they can select here. And then when they're all done, they hit compute. However, if you remember, when I first launched this, nothing was selected. And we know we want the user to select something. So typically on a radio button, you will have it default to a value. So maybe let's default to medium. And the way you do that is you come over here, select the checkbox, and there's a property called checked. And we just check it conveniently. And now it's true. So when the app runs, I don't have to do any data validation. I know for sure that something's checked because we start out with one of them checked and the user can't uncheck it, right? They can just change it. So now we have our whole app ready to go. Everything looks beautiful. We'll launch it. And there we go. So we have an app with a UI that will scale to any size device. Just like the ones before, it will rotate just fine. Oops. Okay, well, so it doesn't rotate just fine. So you see what happened there. Actually, this is a good thing to talk about. Over here, remember, I'm going to pull this off screen for a second. This is tied to the center of the screen. So when I rotated it, the center of the screen is right here. However, on when we're in portrait mode, all this is up to the top. So the fact that these guys aren't tied together in any way ended up causing me a problem. So a lot of times this is not what you would want to do. In this case, for the app we're working on, I'm sure it's just fine. I'm going to rotate this back. Oh. Hold on. Okay, for what we're doing here, it's fine. But a lot of times maybe this isn't the best one to have. Maybe tying this to the bottom here might make more sense. And giving it maybe 32. There we go. So maybe something, I don't know, something along those lines. But for our app, it doesn't really matter. I'm actually going to keep it tied to the top. Okay. But anyway, so that's the reason you want to run stuff all the time. And give you guys a hint since this video, I'm going to do one more after this and ready to wrap up. But when I'm grading, what I typically do is I run your app. First, I open it up. I look here to see, do you have any warnings? I expect you to clean all those up. Then when I run your app, I'm going to try it on different sizes. And I'm going to rotate it, right? And that's, for me, that is by far the quickest way to see if you've done your constraints right. So I'm not going to go in and look at all your constraints to see, is this constraint how I want it, how I think it should be done? There's lots of different ways of piecing these things together. What I'm going to look for to see is, does it work? And so if what you'll do is, most of the time, if you'll just do it on your phone or on your simulator and then rotate it, you should be fine. If everything's still laid out okay, your rules are in good shape. So like this tip amount, if I left it like this and I turned this work in, when I rotated it, it would be over top of the tip amount and I would lose some points on it. All right, so we're in good shape. We have a beautiful UI, but I think we can make it look nicer. So we'll do one more video.